Welcome to On the Hill Podcast. Hi, and we're live.
Back on the hill.
Back on the hill. So,
Episode 5.
episode 5 of On the Hill.
Got Big E, Little E, and our guest today.
Dr. Byron Greenberg. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
So, I don't know if you've seen any of the episodes, but On the Hill essentially is, well, it means several things. One, this is Happy Hill Road. Mm-hmm. So, it's an idea my son and I had about starting a podcast, something we can do together. But then, we've also had, this is our 5th episode, so we're thankful that you came on.
Sure.
And I think we've already established, as far as to our listeners, that I'm a retired police officer, and you're a police officer yourself, but also a psychologist.
I am. I'm a clinical psychologist, but my specialty is police and emergency services psychology. So I work with first responders, but I have a primary interest in law enforcement, being one myself.
Right. So, where'd you grow up?
Dinwiddie County.
Really?
Yeah. I actually Sutherland. I went to private Christian Academy up in Richmond. So, but I played football for Midway.
Did you really?
Yeah, played football out there and made some friends. But then I went away to a boarding academy for my another Christian academy for my high school.
I didn't know that.
And then off to Virginia Commonwealth University for my undergrad. Up to Maryland, to Johns Hopkins for my first master's degree, and then out to Loma Linda University in Loma Linda, California.
Talking about Johns Hopkins?
Yeah, Johns Hopkins University.
Johns Hopkins, sorry.
Yeah, the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore.
Wow.
And at there I was doing some research with Dr. Fred Beemack. And it was I was looking at Amerasians, young folks who came over here from Vietnam, who were mixed heritage, Asian and American from servicemen who came over in the 1987 Homecoming Act, and some of the concerns that they were having acculturating. And so it was doing this multicultural stuff, and then was tasked by the dean of my department to sit on the mayor of Baltimore's Council on Hispanic Affairs, because I was doing multicultural stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I developed a real interest in multicultural issues. And so that ended up translating into an interest in working in academia, but also in keeping my practice going, working with law enforcement and seeing it as its own culture. And looking at the cultural aspects of first responders and the world that they live in. Because what is culture? It's a set of beliefs, practices, and values that are passed down from one generation to the other.
Right.
And if you think about it, I mean, even in your experience, right?
Yeah.
You're acculturated into the department,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you had some FTOs who acculturated you well, and some
Yes.
that didn't. And that was my experience as well. I had people in the law enforcement community who really understood the culture of protecting and serving, and those people had a tremendous influence on me.
Yeah.
Really did.
So, all right. So, let's see. I'm gonna backtrack this. So,
Sure.
So, I thought you were from like New York State or something.
No, I'm just a country boy.
I thought you were from Wisconsin, man,
Yeah.
out there in the. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
No,
Anyway.
I'm the guy who eats roadkill, man. I'm from
Yeah.
Dinwiddie County.
Well, it makes sense because you live in Dinwiddie,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And that's where you work. So you're all right. So we're gonna back it up a little bit.
Sure.
So, all right. So I know. So you went to VCU. Mm-hmm. Does he
Go
get a little
Rams.
closer to that mic? Or is he good?
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, we want to make sure we can hear you good.
Sure.
Because it's important. And we pay a lot of money for these mics. That's our biggest investment, man. We're so proud of these microphones. But anyway,
And we paid a lot for him to be here today. too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
he's evaluating you right now. He's already evaluated me. He can't really talk about that, I guess. But unless I
I
ask.
could, but I'd have to kill everybody if I did.
We got such a large audience. You had to hire a hitman. Yeah, I think, so I guess what's interesting to me is, I know you went over a lot quick, but
Sure.
I know that you, Johns Hopkins, That was for your master's.
Yeah, it's my first master's degree.
And then where'd you get your PhD?
At Loma Linda. It's Loma Linda, California. A lot of people, the people who know Loma Linda University is, you'd probably call it the crown jewel of the Seventh-day Adventist healthcare system. It's a major medical university, training doctors that go all across the world.
Wow.
But most people know Loma Linda because they did the baby Faye heart transplant out there, where they put that baboon heart in that little girl. I don't know if you remember that back in the I think it was in the 90s.
Wow. Yeah, I think I do remember that.
Baby Faye.
So I mean, all right.
That was before me. But.
Yeah, a little bit before you. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but I remember us talking before this, and just as a side note, we've kind of known each other for years anyway.
We have.
Yeah. So I met you as a client when the PD, Petersburg Police, sent me to you for I know you probably can't talk about it, but for insubordination.
That's what you were sent for?
Yeah, I was sent for insubordination. So I mean, Dr. Greenberg was like, okay, like what the
So you were forced to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I welcome all those cases, because sometimes, quite honestly, sometimes people are they're hitting a rough patch and they're seeping. We call it seeping. You're full. You're full, and in this profession, in law enforcement,
I think that's true. Yeah.
You can get full. And you can seep. You can and the problem is that you could seep at work, but you seep at home.
Yeah.
And so my mission, my purpose, and I know I'm probably getting ahead of us here, but
go ahead.
My purpose is to be a servant of those servants.
Yeah.
And to help people who are who by their very nature in their profession, become the repositories for memories that nobody wants,
right? And
then get filled up,
right?
And then so you pay a lot of dues, and I want to say something. Maybe it's not the right time in here, but I've been to a lot of funerals for officers. And nothing saddens me more than when those bagpipes play, man. Once they hit that drone, man, the wells fill up, and it's sad, and it's terrible. But what most people are really not aware of and not conscious of is that those officers that went their entire career working in cities like Petersburg and Hopewell and Richmond, and that they die the death of 1,000 small cuts every single day.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But there's no funeral service for it where we can pause and we can recognize it.
Yep.
But it's 1,000 small cuts every single day.
Yeah, because I've got right here written down something I was, since we can jump all over the place.
Yeah.
We're not have to follow any we don't have a script, but and this is by no means a disrespect to what you just said about the police funerals, but because there they are. But two things: one, officers do a great job going to funerals. Mm-hmm. But we don't do too good of a job, and really the agencies don't do a great job of helping the officers along the way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to make?
Yeah. And I think
that's what you're saying. If
it is.
Officers are full of this.
It is. There's
in pain.
Yeah, 1,000 small cuts, and then you don't get hit. If I hit you with 1,000 small razor blades, your body wouldn't hold you together anymore.
Yeah.
And so what's holding you together? And you know what? And I'm going to tell you this, and we just had this conversation. The truth of the matter is what has held the likes of you together,
right?
And many of the officers is in that other room.
Right. Yeah.
Your wife has held you together when those 1,000 small cuts hit you in this job. You'd come home and she would patch you up, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really big on the law enforcement marriage and supporting that, because that's the biggest support for any officer is their family. And so the departments don't do as good a job, and part of it has to do, in my opinion, with the fact that there's so many aspects to officer wellness that departments get overwhelmed with it. And in honesty, the relationship that officers have with their departments has gone from a paternal one, where you'd go out and you'd have a beer and you'd talk about problems together, or you'd have a cup of coffee and you talk about it, to one where it's contractual. And so what happens is you got an officer who's having a problem. What do? You send him over to the psychologist.
Right.
But you don't deal with him. You don't sit down and go, hey, Eric, what's going on, man?
Yeah.
Let's talk to me about it and tell me, about what's going on. And instead, what you do is you send him to the psychologist because you have to protect yourself legally.
Right. That's a good point.
And so it separates us from having those types of close relationships where it's paternal, and I think it undermines our sense of brotherhood in any profession, in any guild, if you will.
Yeah, and I was never in law enforcement, but I grew up with my dad being in law enforcement. I still know plenty of cops too.
Yeah.
And I think on that same token is, where they can go off and talk to each other and talk about what's going on. But I think pride can get in the way too.
Oh, certainly.
Tough guy status and just
there's
put up a shield and
absolutely
just keep on moving.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why they died the death of 1,000 small cuts is because officers see themselves, firefighters see themselves as the helpers. Mm-hmm. They're not the helpees. Mm-hmm. They help other people. And so when they have a need for help, they're going to either turn to another person in their profession, a peer, or they'll, lock themselves in their house and come out Monday morning looking right as rain. But really all they've done is they've pressed it all down and they have kind of a moratorium on dealing with it. And this is a big burden, in my opinion, for all of us who work with officers who are in the mental health field, is when you store up all that stuff, you retire and you die within 5 years.
Right, yeah. So that's interesting because, and I think this is an accurate count. Out of the 11 people that I know, it's probably more now, but this is the last time I counted, from Petersburg.
Yeah.
Out of 11, I think 4 are left.
Yeah.
So if 7 are dead, either from 2 are from suicide, as all other ones are health or whatever else.
Yep.
So that's what you're saying is, and so really 2 things. One, it shouldn't be a surprise. It's a surprise to the general public. So that's one reason I really wanted to have you on was to talk about, we'll get into it, PTSD, police suicide, divorce rates, all this. But the other part is, you're carrying all this burden and more recently in the political venue or, the media, anti-police.
Yeah.
So everybody's waiting for an officer to do something wrong or make a mistake, let's say. And they can even nowadays be right.
Right.
But they've got to prove that they're right. And then by the time it's over, it's, your career is ruined because you've been all over social media.
Yeah.
But even an officer making a mistake or saying a word that's not perfect because everything's videotaped now, it shouldn't, the average person has no idea what an officer goes through on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And people are still human. So when they do say something or whatever that's a little bit out of what people say is, right, I guess like for somebody like you, it's not really a surprise that it happens.
No, it's not. And it's the old adage that 1,000 attaboys, but 1 shit, and it's all done.
Yep.
And the truth is that that 1 shit will sell to the public in the media, and so that will get played 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And then the problem is, and what most people don't understand is this, and that is, when the media plays something 1,000 times, when you watch it 1,000 times, your brain does not acknowledge it as a single event. Mm-hmm. It sees it as 1,000 separate events. And so if I do a survey of 1,000 people, the data of that is very, very trustworthy. And so what happens is if I do a survey of one person, it's like if I flip a coin one time and it lands heads, you don't think there's anything imbalanced in that coin. Mm-hmm. But if I flip it 1,000 times and it comes up 10 times head, but all the other times it's tails, you think there's a balance problem in that coin because of the sheer number of times that I flipped it. It should be 50-50 because of the averages. So when they play that thing 1,000 times, when you see something 1,000 times, your brain considers it as 1,000 surveys. Right. And then what you believe about that event, your belief is very powerful. It's very trustworthy because you don't realize it's actually not trustworthy because it was a single event that I saw.
And it's just a snapshot.
It's just a snapshot. And so, the media understands this. Yeah. The media understands this. Hey, listen, here's the bottom line. If if the media did not change the way you see things, why would Coca-Cola spend hundreds of millions of dollars in advertisement if it didn't change the way you bought, change your behavior, change the way you think about things? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, we have to be very careful. We're all, we're all experiencing a little hoodwinking from the media, and because the police departments become very good, high energy, adrenaline pumping data for the media to sell their papers and sell their stuff, they're going to end up showing every officer doing anything that remotely looks wrong.
Correct. Taken out of context.
It really is. I'll tell you this. I went up to the Tribeca Film Festival, and I watched the opening of this. It was a movie called Cop Block. And these guys went around and they did a GoFundMe page, and they got a bunch of cameras, and then they went into the inner city and they had everybody take their cameras, and basically they said, hey, we're going to make a movie mogul out of you. You get us pictures of cops doing bad stuff and we'll put it in our movie. Yeah. And you know what's interesting in that is I watched the entire movie, and no place in that movie, out of all the footage, that tens of thousands of hours of footage, did any officer do anything wrong. Now, the officers cussed a lot, because they'd run up into the middle of a fight and turn the camera on and go, hey, MFer, what are you doing? And then they turn the camera on. The officer would turn around and hit them with a staccato set of words that were pretty ugly to get back because they were feeling threatened. But you didn't see them do anything wrong.
Right.
And so, officers, and I'll share this with you guys, and what most people do not get, there's about 825,000 sworn law enforcement professionals in the United States. And there's 950,000 doctors, MDs, so just give you a reference. And those 825,000 officers respond to 250 million calls for service each year. Mm-hmm. And there's another 200 million calls for our contacts that are reportable, like traffic stops and so forth. So now what we have is 825,000 officers doing 450 million, put all those zeros out there, reportable contacts with the public.
Yeah.
And listen, the public is not calling the police to go, hey, how you guys doing? What are you doing on this Wednesday?
Right.
They're calling them because somebody's getting raped, something's getting stolen, somebody just abused somebody just shot somebody, and the cops are showing up to that. 250 million calls for stuff.
Yep.
Do you know how many people get shot by the cop in a year?
I have no idea.
Less than 1,000.
Wow.
About 1,000.
Yeah.
And of that, about 300 of them are African American. And you would think, based on what the media portrays, because they'll show one bad shooting 1,000 times, that it was terrible. More minorities are shot in Chicago in a few months than they are shot in the entire United States in the entire year by 825,000 law enforcement officers doing 250 million calls for service. Yeah. But you'd never know that. You'd never know it.
Yeah, they act like it's a daily occurrence.
They do. And then officers who can't articulate all the stuff that I just shared in 30 seconds, they're dealing with a public who's just walking up to them absolutely sure that they're being abusive to the community.
Yeah, right. Just harassing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other part is, exactly. So, aside from working with a bunch of cops, and you've worked with a bunch of cops for, same, when did you start?
Tens of thousands. 1990, late 94, 1995.
All right, so we started really about the same time.
Yeah.
I started being a cop in 95.
Yeah.
So what's the number? Tens of thousands?
Tens of thousands of officers I've worked with. Yeah, I've debriefed over 7,500 emergency service people following major disasters, major stuff.
Yeah, so that's why we're so glad to have you on. I mean, it's a wealth of information, but the other part is the message you just delivered about these numbers. Two things. One is, and this sounds mean, but let's just be real here. We're not dealing with brain surgeons when you talk to cops, because it's too different. First of all, the personality types wouldn't even fit. But I used to say that in the academy when I taught, just kind of to make people laugh. Yep. But in reality, we're just dealing with average people, everyday people. I'm not saying they're not smart, but it's a different kind of person that wants to go out there and put their lives on the line for total strangers.
Yep.
But the other part of it is, There's an incident going on now with one of my past recruits where, I'm not going to give you any information out, but essentially he's so worried about maintaining this job, because that's who he is. So a lot of these guys, and I guess I'm just talking from the cops' perspective, is, this becomes so important to them that that's who they identify as, because you have to.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, how you got to take this seriously, or how are you going to stay alive?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a job, but it's also this is a career, not a job, but it's also your life on the line. Not just
the cost of failure is high.
Yeah. Either you get killed, get somebody else killed, or have your life ruined, or end up in jail.
Yep.
But anyway, so this guy I'm watching from the outside, and I've been through this stuff myself with the agency Petersburg, but I'm not saying this is where he works, but essentially the situation is he can't even see his way through the force, only because he wants to maintain his position as a cop. Mm-hmm. And now the administration should be where you're coming from.
Right.
They should be the voice of reason, saying, "Hey, hold up for a minute. Of all the things that happen nationwide, and they could even have the stats for their own city or county, but generally that's not what happens."
Right.
That's the other part about this, and this is what I was going to ask you is, serious as the job is, it's probably the same for the military and firefighters, is it seems like, 1 minute you could be loved by the whole squad, but then whether it's a psychological breakdown or not psychological breakdown, but something happens and you need help,
right.
you get stigmatized.
Right.
Or if you get in trouble, and maybe you're not really even in trouble, but the media thinks you're in trouble, and now that the administration thinks you're in trouble, everybody else just kind of pulls back.
Yeah, they do.
What is that about?
Well, it's a part of the culture. It's an unhealthy part of the culture. Cultures have healthy and unhealthy aspects to them. And, we don't like it when people talk about our culture. It's like they're talking about us personally, and we them's be fighting words and so forth, But, we can criticize cop culture because we're cops.
Right.
But if you out there criticize it, we take issue with it because you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
And so, we have some umbrage there. But what happens in law enforcement is if you get in trouble or have the appearance of getting into trouble, everybody moves back from you immediately, and and you're guilty until you're proven innocent.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal, and that is, if you're going down, if your ship goes down, if I attach my ship to it, it'll go down too.
Right.
And so we back up, and then what happens is you'll get a call from somebody going, "Hey man, I'm really supporting you." It's like, but they don't talk to you at the water fountain at the station, when you're, they'll give you that, and then when you're done, they're like, "Man, I knew you were okay."
Right.
Yeah. And the truth of the matter is this: the cost of failure is high. You lose your job in this profession, and you lose your livelihood, you lose your pension, and this is the key: you lose your identity.
Yeah, that's the bigger part. Yeah.
You lose your identity, and it becomes who you are. I tell the recruits at the academy when I teach there, and I do that law enforcement family night.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
And so I basically go in just shortly before they graduate, and I basically talk with them about what the law enforcement family is going to be about, and help them to understand where some of the landmines are, so they don't discover them by the loud noise. And then what happens is I say, look, you're going to be making changes. Hold on to your non-law enforcement friends. Mm-hmm. It's going to be difficult, because what happens in law enforcement is you start out with it's us versus them, the bad guys, all those other people. And then what happens is you get in for 5 years and you look around and you're like, man, I don't even like some of these sons of bitches.
That's right. Ain't no doubt.
And then what happens is you only have a couple people who you're connected with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can become very isolated and insular. And listen, everybody needs a tribe.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a tribe. And in this profession, everybody who wears blue is in the tribe, in my opinion. And I tell people, listen, I love every single officer. I don't like every single one.
Yeah.
But I love every single one, because that's the commitment.
Yeah.
But yeah, people will step back from you.
Yeah.
And then when you redeem yourself, they'll step back in. Did we run out of time?
Heck no. That's the timer, man.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. We run out of time.
My special cookies are ready.
Okay.
It was on the timer.
Awesome.
So So that happened to me, but I mean, that's the reason I was asking. I thought maybe it was just me, but I stepping outside since I've been out of law enforcement, you know, I think I left in 15 or 18, whatever the heck it was. I can't. It's terrible of years. But the point is, the further I'm away from it, even though I was an instructor, I can see these things playing out and they make more sense to me than they did when I was right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But literally, I sued the city and the chief and all this, but I noticed that everybody that I've known for my entire career just kind of like disappeared. Yeah. Like I see somebody in the parking lot, like, hey man, what's up? Like they didn't even hear me. I'm like,
right.
Yeah. Are you serious, bro? And then later, they're like, hey man, I got you. I'm like,
right.
No, you don't have me.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that was the hardest part. And that's the other part of this whole thing with his identity is, you know, well, two things. One, I see a difference than what it used to be. So I got hired in the 90s, and at that time they were hiring mostly, you know, ex-military people like that. Who had some experience, and all I had was a college degree. Where now that seems to have changed, and want to hire more people with degrees.
They do.
But the point is, so I was the anomaly then. Mm-hmm. You know, I was showing my son some old pictures of us when he was younger. I had like these little round glasses, you know. But I was a cop, man.
Right? Yeah.
I had like the little John Lennon. That was the style back then.
Yeah. Right.
Little mustache and stuff. But
Snidely whiplash.
Yeah, I caught hell, man. I caught hell as a new cop because I wasn't that military type.
Yeah,
but you know,
porn star mustache.
Looked like Ron Jeremy.
Full head of hair.
Right. Yeah,
Ron Jeremy, man. But anyway, and now I've seen that switch, you know, from more of an academic mindset. But also, what I've noticed more is back in the early or the mid '90s, 2000s, you know, like you said, that tribe, people like if you worked in Petersburg, you were proud of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you worked, and then we had these other like internal strife with other local agencies. Like we played tag, flag football and stuff, or talk smack to each other. But that was real. That was coming from the heart.
Yeah.
And people would stay in these agencies. Now these guys jump ship like it's nothing. Yeah. They'll go from one agency to another, and it's not just law enforcement. Like my wife's a nurse, and the same thing. These guys are jumping for money or whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know. If you see a difference in not so much the quality of people that should be the most educated, but as far as commitment goes, do you see a difference?
Well, I do a lot of pre-hire evaluations for the agencies here in South Central Virginia, and for those of you who don't know what that is it's a psychological evaluation that's performed prior to being hired. Well, they're made a conditional offer, and then if they pass their physical and their psychological, and I do the psychologicals. And so even if you're a sworn officer in another agency, most agencies find it prudent to do that psychological to make sure that they have a psych on this person. And what I see when I see people now, I see this generation is they're going to end up jumping if it benefits them.
Right.
So if it benefits them, they're going to jump. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't hold to their commitments, to do the right thing for the right reasons. But they understand once you make it a contractual relationship, it's now a contract. And now what happens is I'm going to negotiate for my best interest in a contract.
Right, that's true.
And so, now what happens is they say to you, I'm writing a contract with you. You've got to give me 2 years if I pay you while you're going through the academy. Now we're contractually related. And so, and I work for a sheriff's department, which is, a little bit different now than a police department, and that you work at the pleasure of the sheriff.
Yep.
And so, if my sheriff has a problem with me, he'll pull me into his office and he'll bend my ear, and I listen because he's the man, and I have loyalty to that guy.
Yeah.
And I think that you get a little bit more of it out there than you do in the PDs, simply because again, it feels more contractual there.
Yeah, I think if people don't know, so some like say we're in Chesterfield County now. They have a sheriff's office and they have a police department.
Yes.
But am I allowed to say where you work or not?
Where I work? Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dinwiddie. So
sure.
It's a up and coming community, is growing, but at the moment their primary in law enforcement is the sheriff's office. Period.
Yes, that's right. We are the police department
and the civil process people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the sheriff's an elected official. So the difference is the sheriff can hire and fire you at his will or at her will.
Correct.
Because I work for a sheriff too, Sheriff Crawford.
Yep,
last 2 years. So she literally could have called me in that day and said, "You're fired."
Yep.
There's no reason.
Yep.
You looked at me funny. I don't like the way you. Whatever. Who knows?
Right. And so the relationship becomes the metric.
Yeah.
And versus a contract.
That's true. Yeah.
And so it does change a little bit of the culture within those departments, even though we're we're a policing agency. It's set up just a little bit different.
I have a question, because I'm outside of all realms of fire department, police department, military. So we talked about within the police department, if there's a problem, people tend to scatter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know you. We're gonna do this and that. But then you just talked about, in a single area, you could have deputy office, then you have the police force, then you have state police above that. And in those levels, are there some, not just from county to county, because I'm sure if another county rolls up, you're like, they're not Petersburg.
Right. There's a little bit of competitiveness there, I think. But I do think that there's a little bit of jurisdictional, bickering, if you will. But for the most part, like for instance, out in the county, the state cops, we work tightly with them. They handle all of our traffic stuff for us, and a little bit of bickering over who should get what money when we're writing those tickets, and there's been some a little bit of arguing back and forth, but I won't get into that. But all of us, we all bleed blue.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is go to an International Association of Chiefs of Police conference, and you know that you're amongst family.
Right.
Even if you don't like them, we're still family. And if somebody rolls up on you, people are going to run code to get to you to help you, even if they don't like you. That's just the way that we do it, because part of it is a part of the culture. It needs to be a part of the culture because, again, the cost of failure is high.
Yeah.
Your lives are at stake here.
I just find it ironic too. It's the same with the military. You hear, like in the moment, I feel like you said, like the herd mentality. If they're out in the field, there's a certain viewpoint from different branches of the military too. Like, Army might look at the Marines as below them, or the Air Force might, or the chair force, some people call them.
Right. Yeah.
But like you said, at a convention or out in public, when you're amongst
or
non-military or non-police.
Yeah, people.
Then they group together.
Yeah, they do. And so, there's this adage in the Middle East, and the adage is me and my brother against my cousin, me and my cousin against the world.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of that if you attack the United States, all the military is all united for one thing. Yeah. And I think in the end, my experience has been, you said something very important, Eric. You said these are ordinary people, and they are. They're ordinary people who have been called to do extraordinary and exceptional things.
Yeah.
And what keeps me coming back is I see them doing it over and over again. I see people sacrificing of themselves. I see them giving of themselves, and oftentimes without a pat on the back, doing that right thing, even when nobody's looking. And I see that time and time again. Now, listen, I've seen people goof up really bad.
Sure.
But again, they're human beings.
Yeah.
And I don't see anybody else stepping up to go do it.
That's right.
It's a group of people. And I know that some people have said, well, these are power hungry people. Listen, you've never had as much powerlessness as when you've worked in this position. Yes, you've had opportunities for power and control, but you've equally had as much powerlessness in this profession. So people who would sign up to this to be in power all the time would be sorely disappointed in this profession. Sorely disappointed. And they just want to get in here to hot rod and drive 100 miles an hour and wear black suits and do that butt skid across the front of their Camaro and look cool and sexy. Truth of the matter is, it's long periods of boredom. Long periods of boredom punctuated by terror. And it really does cause one to grow up fast in this profession.
That's true. But, to go back to what you were saying, so, not everybody knows this. So, the federal agencies have, nationwide jurisdiction.
Yep.
And then the state police have statewide jurisdiction. The sheriffs and police, they have jurisdiction within 1 mile of their city or county, 1 mile outside the range. Unless it's a serious felony, but any citizen can intervene in a felony. So, but for the most part, so you're limited in scope to where you can, practice or, you have that authority. So like, I worked in Petersburg my whole life, but I lived in Chesterfield. So in Chesterfield, I was just like a citizen for the most part, unless there was a felony or something going on. But, the other part is, you talk about the state police. So like, it's interesting you brought that up, is like in the sheriff's offices, the state police are big, particularly in a big county like Dinwiddie, where you guys don't have these huge number of deputies.
508 square miles.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. And then there's, limited number of deputies. So the state police play a major role. So it like you said, it benefits them for them to get along. Whereas when I was in Petersburg, and this is no slight to the state police, because there's a lot of great officers. There's a lot of great police officers, and there's a lot of great state troopers, but then there's a lot of not so great officers and a lot of not so great state troopers. But anyway, the point was they were mandated one time to come in and help us, because and they're actually in there now, I think, helping with the city with all the recent shootings and stuff. But anyway, the point was some of the troopers wanted to go hands on and really assist, but some of them were like, since they were forced, they were like, we don't want no parts of this.
Right.
So give it, so there are those kind of conflicts.
Yeah. Right.
Like I had a guy rob me one night, and I said, hey, we stopped and we're dealing with something. And I said, hey, you've not got a couple of those summonses, I'll do the other set. It's like 2 or 3 different people. He's like, no, I don't have my summonses with me right now. I'm like, dude, I got a whole clipboard full.
There you go.
We're only allowed to use ours. I'm like, so I knew right off the bat.
This can be a long night.
Yeah.
Yeah, this cat. Yeah, this is full of what. But
but I think to be fair too, Eric, and that is, and again today, and I think that any of the public who's watching this, you need to be aware. This is very important, and that is when you place the burden of perfection on imperfect people, and I don't know one perfect person, and you say, listen, you make one mistake, you flub up one time, and we'll put you in jail. We'll take your house. What you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with officers who realize you cannot get in trouble for the stop you do not make.
Yeah, that's what. Yes, self-initiation is gone.
Right, and then so what you do is you undermine that initiation of that officer, and that officer who doesn't have that initiative is not going to make that traffic stop and find your daughter in that trunk. Yeah. And so, when that person drives off with them, don't be angry at the police who didn't want to get in trouble because they just got told by a city manager that they can't stop people now. So it's and the truth is this: you're damned if you do, and you're dead if you don't.
Yeah.
That's the double bind that people are put in.
Yeah. So what's crazy is like this is interesting. So the primary reason for a stop, is reasonable suspicion.
Yes.
For a traffic stop, not for an arrest. But anyway, so they always had, like, if you get kidnapped and you get put in the trunk, pull the wires out.
Right.
Absolutely. Pull the taillights out so they don't work. It might
reasonable. Now I can stop this person.
Right. But guess what?
Now we don't want to stop anybody for a taillight out because that's harassment.
Yeah. So that's gone. Yeah. I don't know if you know that or not, but that was gone as an initial reason for a stop, and that could have been, it's like Timothy McVeigh when he was busted by a regular beat cop.
Yep.
Because of tail light or speeding or something.
Yep.
I mean, all these things lead to something else. But it's such a great point. But and
it's not harassment. The bottom line is this: if you're a citizen and you've got a tail light out, and we stop you, we're not harassing you. There's a tail light out, and the tail light might cause you to be in an accident. Mm-hmm. Person didn't see your tail light, hits you, spins you around the road, you hit a tree, now you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. Hey, wouldn't it have been nice if you would have endured the discomfort of being stopped by the police for a few minutes and them saying, hey, get that tail light fixed?
Yeah, or your daughter's in the trunk. Yep. Or the guy's he has no license, and then there's a gun.
Yeah, or he's headed to your house to rob your house.
Yeah. Or she. So
or she. Thanks.
They don't want to discriminate.
Yeah, let's not discriminate against those female burglars.
So this is you got any questions on where we are now?
No, just keep following.
So it's interesting. Talking about commitment to. So I mean, my kids were raised. They both went to VCU. Mm-hmm. They both are artists at some level. My son a musician, my daughter a dancer, and now at one point they both were teachers. So they were committed to, it's kind of, I guess, where they grew up in, service to others or whatever. And I'm not slighting you, but what I'm saying is you were a teacher for 5 years.
Yep.
And you recently, you just started a new job as, learning a trade.
Yep. So 5 years teaching, 3 years at elementary school, 2 years at a junior high school, 13 to 14-year-olds. Both under the poverty line, so not the best area.
Yep.
But I made tons of connections with kids who maybe didn't grow up with a father or live with their grandparents, because I was few of many teachers that were male, and it's hard to come by. So I made a lot of good relationships, and I also had a lot of moments where you're like,
why am I doing this?
Yeah. So because it's similar in a way where.
But what was it that, I know I've had this conversation,
Yeah.
but what was it that kind of said, hey, I need to do something different?
It was the underappreciation, and then on the money side too. I mean, I could see what I was going to make my 35th year teaching, and and it's not all about money, but at the same time,
you got bills to pay.
Every single teacher in the county, and this goes for most counties, they get the same pay raise every year, no matter if they're the best teacher in the school or the worst teacher.
Right.
So I never half-assed anything, and I always did my best because I don't like being embarrassed.
No.
And I don't like putting out a bad product.
Right.
So I would go out and do my best, and you're also at the reins of other people most of the time.
So for about 20 years, I had a contract with the California Teachers Association. And I would go out and I'd work with them on this program called Survive and Thrive, which I helped to develop. And basically it was taking teachers who were at the point of burnout and rejuvenating them and getting them back in the classroom. And these are the things that they said which burnt them out. But one of the biggest contributors to burnout is role confusion. And that is, what is my job here? What do you want from me?
Right, yeah, a clear definition of what the job is.
And so what happens is when they want you to keep discipline in your
that's
room,
number one.
But they don't want you to be a disciplinarian. Then what happens is you're put in this double bind. Now I don't know what my role is.
Yeah.
You want me to be disciplined. You want me to keep discipline, but you don't want me to use discipline to keep discipline. I can't do that.
I can't do both.
And so then what happens is you're now in a double bind, and it burns people out.
Yeah.
And I think that this happens in law enforcement as well, because what happens is we go out there and we enforce the law. Well, this law right here is not popular. Well, legislators haven't changed that law. And so it's not a popular law.
Yeah.
And so the community is pushing back on people in the leadership of the city. And so they come to you and they say, hey, don't enforce that law. That's what happened. It's what happened in a large city, which happens to be the capital of this state, which will go unmentioned. And the chief of police there was basically saying, no, we will not have civil unrest. We will enforce the law, and was basically told to stand down on issues that were quite dangerous to the citizenry, and that kind of undermined his tenure there. And what a tremendous chief that guy was! What a tremendous loss to the city! What a tremendous chief! And that's what happens when management in the city doesn't want you to do the thing that you're there to do.
Right.
Yeah, and the other part it did was it was a mass exit of the guys.
Yeah.
And not the guys, but the both. When I say guys, all inclusive, male and female. But yeah, I mean, as a result of that, Richmond is still shorthanded.
Oh, absolutely.
And in Richmond, if I remember we went to a party one time. This has been a while back. I was drinking back then. This has been 18 years and I drank, so this has been a while back. But anyhow, we thought we were like the badasses of the Tri-Cities of Petersburg, But we went. It was like one of the guys I work with. His sister was married to a Richmond cop.
Okay.
So we were invited to that party. So a bunch of us kind of show up. We're like, hey, we're gonna represent. And we got in there. We're like, bro, these cats are the real deal.
Oh man.
I mean, it's crazy. I was like, holy smokes, man, these guys might stomp us down.
Right.
Man.
I've got some cops that are Richmond cops who I privileged to call them friends.
Yeah.
And those guys, But they've taken it on the chin. I mean, you got shifts up there where, you should have 12 units in an area and there's like 3. And you're like, and I'm like, and then one goes on a 1096 somewhere to sit on that. And then it's like, now I got 2 guys covering the area that should have, 10 other
more,
units. Yeah. And it's like, and so, they've taken it on the chin. Huge morale issues there because of city management. And yet all the time, even under these conditions, these guys get up.
Yep.
They suit up. They get in that unit.
Get back out there.
And they get back out there.
That's the part, man. Yeah. So it's something, man. But what I was going to say was about you was, I mean, they lost a great teacher.
Yeah.
And a great role model for all these kids. I mean, I'm not slighting you. I mean, you're my son. But what I'm getting around to is, nobody loves you more than me and your mom. But what I'm trying to say is, we're losing great people because you had, in your case, and the school board or the principal, whatever, either they were pressured or not allowed to back you.
Right.
So you'd have a kid that would do something essentially was like a felony or something. Yeah. And 2 weeks later, they're back at school.
Right.
And I'm not saying that not necessarily with you, but it could be any kid.
Well, it could be teachers, school board members involved in things.
Yep.
And that's when things would start to change. But if it's just me on a regular day, breaking up a fight, or if there's drugs involved, you see the kids back in 10 days.
Yeah.
And they're doing, and that's the other thing is, like you said, the laws are, or the rules, the laws are there, but they're not favorited. Right. Especially if the parents say, my kid should not be punished for this.
Right.
They don't get punished for it.
Right.
And the kids, catch on to it.
Right. A rule that's not enforced is not a rule.
No.
A law that's not enforced is not a law.
And our citizens do the same thing. They take advantage of
absolutely
whatever they can.
I mean, I don't know about you, but, it seems like the presence of law enforcement on the highways has been less.
Yes.
And have you seen the crazy stuff that people are doing on the highways now?
Yeah.
I mean, I see people driving. My wife and I were having this conversation, and, we were talking about some of these incidents, and I'm like, these people have lost their minds.
They have, yeah.
And it's like there's no accountability.
Nope.
And and so it's it reminds me of a biblical passage that says that every man will turn to his own way and become a law unto himself.
Yeah.
And people have really
that's what it's done. Yeah. So the state police are down. Like I think last I heard like 300 troopers. Yeah. So without them guys out there on the interstate in particular, you see these things happen. So it goes back to this. It's this little funny story. So in Petersburg, so I mean, I just want to say this story and kind of tie it into do the enforcement of the smallest rules make a difference, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, in this case, I've been a cop now, I don't know, 15 years, whatever it was, and I got sent to the same location where people were drinking in public. Mm-hmm. So what they wanted was, they want summonses written, people arrested, all this kind of stuff. Of course, in Petersburg, I mean, a lot of other things are going down, so I'm not really so worried about it.
Right.
So I pull up and I said, hey, do me a favor, man. They starting to try to pour it out. I said, no, man, stop. I said, just put the stuff in a cup, dude.
Right.
I mean, I can give you the best advice I can give you.
Right.
Pour it in a paper cup, plastic cup, I don't care what it is. Just get rid of the beer can or the bottle.
Right.
Right. And they were like, damn, bro, you're pretty cool,
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, man, it's a simple solution, So while I'm doing that, a lady's walking down and she's walking a baby in a stroller. And she's like, you ain't got nothing better to fucking do. I'm like, mind your damn business, right? Because this is a one-way street. It's on Washington Street. It's one way, east. And it actually was Wythe Street, one way east. But anyway, on the western part of the city. But anyway, the part of the story was, so she's running her mouth, and I was like, and the guy's like, hey man, she don't know you're pretty cool, right? I don't know why she's messing with you. I'm like, well, that's what it is. So she actually throws a piece of paper down that she's eating her lunch or something. So she throws it down. I was like, that's going to cost you.
Right.
Now you're going to get a ticket for littering.
Yeah.
She takes off.
You can't put that in a paper cup. Right.
And I was going to do it to show her. She takes off, and I never would have done it any other time.
Yeah.
Bob would have said pick it up. But she takes off running into a lady's house. So I figure it's her house. Right. So I go knock on the door. I said, can you have your daughter come out? She's like, no, can you get this lady out of my freaking house? I don't know who the hell she is. So I'm like, you, get out of here.
Right.
I said, you just broke into a lady's house, essentially.
You're breaking and entering now.
For littering. And she's like, I can't believe this is, she's going off and all this stuff. I said, you're going to get a ticket for littering.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get a ticket because I said, I told her the whole story.
Yep.
I mean, I love doing that stuff. Like, I actually told those guys to do this. You literally shouldn't have littered, but you could have just picked it up. Whatever, here's your ticket.
Right.
So while I'm doing that, this guy shows up. What you doing with my cousin down there?
No.
That's my niece or cousin. I was like, unless you want to be part of this, stay down there.
Right.
I'll be with you in a minute. I don't know why I'm telling the story, but it
that's
goes back to the basics. So she goes off, she's pissed, and she actually tears the summons up. I said, well, you better not throw that down.
Yeah.
Because I will arrest you.
Write you again.
And I'm going to arrest you, and I'm going to call CPS for your kid. Whoa. So, yeah. So she walks off. So now I said, come on down, sir, what you got? I said, what's your niece's name? Cousin's name, don't know her name.
Right.
I said, so what's the problem, bro? What did you got to do with this? He's like, you ain't got nothing better to do than this. Kind of older guy.
Yeah.
I said, well, what would you have me do, sir? Mm-hmm. I said, you know what? Let's not enforce any of the laws.
Right.
I said, litter. I said, look at the street right here. It's trash everywhere. And he's just like, yeah, well, what's one more piece? I said, what's one more piece is that, if you didn't litter, this is your neighborhood, why aren't you picking it up?
Right.
Anyway, and it went on and on. But, I mean, it all leads to one thing to the next. And what you just said about the interstate is so true. I mean, I was driving down the interstate today. And I'm going, you got to go at least 10 miles, 11 miles over the speed limit.
You do.
Or you get run over. And somebody blows by me, and I know they're going over 90 or 100. Easily going 90 or 100. Because I'm going, the speed limit is 60 or 65. And it's just, it goes back to the basics of, if rules are in place, enforce them. Of course, every officer has discretion too.
Right.
And that's the one magic part about it. So.
Are you familiar with Kohlberg, moral development? Kohlberg, this guy did this research on moral development, and he basically said that people do the right thing. It's really 6 different stages that people develop through, but they're collapsible into 3 main stages. Okay. And the first stage is people do the right thing to avoid punishment. So you think about a small kid, right?
Fair enough,
you know what? You can't do that, or you get a spanking. So they want to do the right thing to avoid the punishment. And then when they develop beyond that, they do the right thing in order to get a reward. Mm-hmm. And so, you know what? I'm going to come to work on time. Why? Because I want to get that paycheck. And so I want to keep my job. I want to be able to pay my bills. And so this is you do the right thing to get the reward. And then the ultimate stage of moral development is doing the right thing because it's the right thing.
Right.
And what happens is in a society that basically says you're your own authority, you don't have to mind anybody. You do what you want to do, and your feelings are the thing that you use to determine whether or not other people are right or wrong. You've hurt my feelings, you've triggered me, and therefore you're bad and I'm good. When they do that, they get stuck at doing the right thing only when it benefits them, and they never get to the point where they're doing right because it's right.
Yeah,
they do it. They're stuck.
And what a shame, because I mean, it is, and it's one of the advantages of getting older. You kind of, you always see. When I was a kid, I was like, man, my parents, but what did they really know? Then you become a parent, and my son's in his mid 20s, late 20s. I mean, I appreciate the fact that so many things I had to do all my life, particularly to provide for my family, was because it was just the right thing to do.
Do the right thing.
Yeah. And not every time, but some of the time, most of the time, because how the hell will we function? But we're definitely missing that as a culture, but we're missing that as the ultimate authority is, that's why, God to me, and, my kids we didn't go to church necessarily, but we knew they were raised as a God, and we love God, and, all these things, that's who we answer to. So without that, humans aren't capable of setting a moral, authority.
Right.
There's somebody you answer to.
Right.
So who does the king answer to? He answers to God.
Right.
Who does the chief of police answer to? Because some of these cats think they're gods.
Right.
Yeah, you answer to God, man. But when they don't, I mean, you got to go back, a whole collapse of an entire agency, I'm not going to rehash it on the podcast, but literally you had a whole corrupt city and a corrupt administration.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars gone. It's like, so what do you think is going to happen with the cops? I mean, there's that moral. The morals are gone.
Yeah,
right.
From the top.
From the top down. That's terrifying.
Well, and it's kind of, I got into trouble. I got into trouble in one department because I was in a meeting, and I said, because they were talking about morale, and one of these officers said, "Well, we got Dr. Greenberg here. Why is morale down?" As if it was somehow my fault.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what, you know, I'm like, well, I'm the psychologist. I'm seeing people when they're struggling. I'm not the morale guy, you know. But I said, that's the thing about the word morale. The word morale and the word moral are the same word. And where you have bad morale, you have bad morals.
Bingo. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what happens is when management, when people in our profession, when we bend the law, break the law, when we do things that are challenge the ethical requirements, it creates concentric circles of suffering.
Yeah.
And the public, seizes on that to excuse other negative behavior that they do. How many times have you stopped somebody who said, "I see you guys speeding all the time"?
That's right.
You see, it's like, it doesn't matter that I was going to a call, but, but so what happens is when you have people in higher positions who are bending the truth or who are bending the ethics, and have convenient ethics, the public is going to follow suit.
Right.
And that's unfortunate, but that's a fact.
Yeah, I used to say, you can kind of judge a community, and not judge it right or wrong, but you can judge what you're going to expect as a law enforcement officer for the amount of crime they'll tolerate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what was tolerated in Petersburg would never be tolerated in like the Ritchie part of Henrico or something, or Chesterfield.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's part of that, but anyway.
Yeah. If you were in the Ritchie area, you wouldn't have told them to put it in a cup.
Right.
Yeah. You just, hey, get rid of that now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's just crazy, but yeah, I mean,
and it's never the easiest thing to do either. Doing the right thing.
The right thing is not the easy thing to do.
Never the easiest way.
No, it's not. And you have to. There's a woman author who said the greatest want of this world is the want of men who will not be bought or sold, who in their inmost souls are true and honest, who do not fear to call sin by its right name, who will stand for right though the heavens fall, and whose characters are as true as a needle to the pole.
Damn. Wow.
The greatest want of the world.
Who was that? You don't know?
White. E.G. White was her name. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nowadays you're in trouble for telling the truth. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you can get in trouble. But, you speak the truth. And I love that poem by Rudyard Kipling where he says, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or see the things that you've given your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. It's like, if you can do those things, is a lovely poem. If everybody should read that poem. If.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, I like that. All right, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
All right, so how long? All right, so I know you were in California.
Yeah.
And is that where your interest in, you were there during the LA shootout, right?
Yeah, I was. I was there. And it was in '97 in February.
Yeah.
It was in Hollywood. And they robbed, a couple guys robbed a Bank of America.
Yeah.
And shot it out with the police. And I was across the hill. And I was down Sepulveda Boulevard at a Wells Fargo bank, debriefing some tellers who had been somewhat traumatized by the sting operation that the FBI ran in their shop. It was, it was really interesting because these tellers were in there, and one of the tellers was bad and had gotten caught passing some phony checks with a boyfriend who was his MO was he would hook up with these middle-aged women who were kind of lonely. He would find them, and he was kind of suave, and he would get them to fall in love with them, and then he would go in and get them to do one bad check, and then he would blackmail them to do more checks.
That's right.
And so they had caught her, and so the bank was full of what appeared to be customers. but they were all FBI agents.
Right. So when he
came in, man, they everybody's got machine guns, and the tellers were all freaked out because they couldn't tell them.
Yeah.
And so I was debriefing them, and it was back in the day of the pagers, and and my pager was going off 911, 911, and I'm like, what in the heck are they doing? Because I'm, this lady's crying, she's talking about being terrified, and I'm doing and being buzz.
Yeah.
So I called and I said, what do you want? And they said, well, turn a TV on. And I said, I didn't bring a TV with me to this debriefing.
Yeah.
And so I asked the office manager, we went into her office, turned the TV on, and they were shooting it out right over the hill. And I was like, they were like, get down there. And I was like, man, I'm not going down there. They got automatic guns. I'm carrying a 45. What am I going to do? And so I went downtown. They shot the second guy and they had him down. And I headed down there, went down there. And if you look at the CNN footage, you look in about 30 minutes in, you see the guy, he's got his foot on the guy's neck. He's in front of like a white car, truck. And then you'll see a white Honda pull up about a block away, and you'll see my bald head stick out.
Dang.
And you'll see a very animated LAPD guy telling me that I was not welcome in that area. But I carried San Bernardino's star at the time. You think Dinwiddie's large. San Bernardino, man, 23,000 square miles.
All right, so hang on. So you were like, you had a badge and you could carry a gun. So what was your...
Well, I carried, my badge said police psychologist.
Okay, that's cool.
And I was not a sworn guy, but I carried that because that gave me all the access. But I had a private carry because I was being sent at 2 a.m. down to so I mean I wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was kind of segueing. I was going to ask you, was that your did that introduce you?
I was originally headed to a career in research and academia, doing health psychology stuff.
Right.
And I was in psychoneuroimmunology. I was studying to see how the brain impacted the immune system and so forth. And I was doing all that work. And I was doing it with one of my mentors was a woman by the name of Dr. Nelson Canarella, Sandy. And she's the one who did the baby Fayheart transplant. She was the immunologist who did that. Oh, wow. So she was the immunologist for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Dr. Bailey was the guy who did the surgery, but I believe. But yeah, so I was doing that, and I was doing some work for a group called the Counseling Team. And that's to pay bills. I had a couple kids at home.
Right.
My wife was at home, and I was working full time doing police psych work to pay the bills while I was in graduate school.
Well, that's cool. So, but then it just became like a passion.
It did. I saw officers. It was the 3 strikes rule in California came out just shortly before. It was, I think, 94. And I was at shootings every single week. Every week. It was like the Wild West again. And it all started when they'd make that traffic stop and the person would say these words, "I ain't going back."
Yeah.
And that was vernacular for draw. This is now a gun battle.
Yeah, because the 3 strikes you're out was that you're going to jail for life.
20 years. It was 20 year mandatory. No, there was no leeway in the sentencing. 3rd felony, and you're 50 years old and you're going to get a 20-year sentence. You just shoot it out.
Death sentence.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah, you're dead either way.
Wow. All right, so then I guess you came back home.
Yeah, after 99 in 98, I came back. I actually went up to Maryland again to do my internship, and I was up in Spring Grove Hospital Center, Shepherd Pratt Hospital, and Johns Hopkins again. And so I did my internship back up there. Came back down to Virginia. My family's all down here. My wife's family's down here. We don't have any family anymore, but they were all down here. And my wife's family lived in Richmond. She grew up, went to Hermitage, and she grew up there.
Wow.
So I met her at VCU. And
that's where I met my wife.
Yeah, I tell you, every time I return to VCU, I feel like I'm returning to the scene of a crime because I literally stole the crown jewel out of Richmond when I got her.
Dang.
When I married her, I stole the crown jewel out of Richmond. I got her, and you guys didn't. And
that's what I'm saying.
She's the bomb.
So this is the part where she's going to say, "Honey, hey, come here real quick. I got to show you this one part of the podcast."
Yeah. That's what this is for. But no,
I'm with you, dude.
she is. She's the bomb. And I.
It's kind of weird because I I got one too.
Yeah, did you? Yeah, and but you know,
Yeah, he got the bomb,
but
man.
I got mine 34 years ago. Yeah, so
VCU's producing
passed
some
the torch.
bombs,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Well, I met my wife at Thomasdale High School.
right.
I got the
TD.
bomb, man. Thomasdale.
Yeah.
All right, so you're doing all this stuff. I know maybe I have to start wrapping this down in a minute. But all right, so what year? So you've been helping in the community. You said you came back here in '99, right?
Yeah.
The
So I came.
Tri-Cities.
So I was out there doing police psych work, and then when I was up in Maryland, I worked for part of my internship was at Shepherd Pratt Hospital in the forensic unit, the police psych unit.
Wow.
So under James McGee and Deborah DiBernardo, and so I did work up there. And James McGee is the guy who did he's got that whole thing on Classroom Avenger model. You can look it all up online. He was my mentor there, and he and Karen DiBernardo. But then I came down to Richmond area, and what happens is in order to get licensed in the state, you have to work underneath somebody who's licensed and
Right.
get those hours. And so I took a post at Central State Hospital,
Right.
And then opened up Greenberg and Associates and started providing services to a couple agencies in the area.
Yeah.
But I was at Central for 5 years, and got all that training at the ILPPP, which is the Institute for Law, Public Policy, and Psychiatry at UVA, so that I could be admitted to the courts as an expert in adjudicative competency, insanity, and custody. And so did that work. Got recruited to go down to Greensville for a couple of years and work down there as a chief psychologist. And yeah,
Busy man.
yeah,
Been around the block, man.
yeah. Well, but I found that I wasn't as effective down there because
Yeah.
the truth is that if you're doing time, doing 20 years, the last guy you want to see show up is me, a police psychologist, because I'm just going to cut that shit out therapy really, and I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be okay and hold your hand. But I tell you, if you had a real mental illness, I'd go to the governor's office for you, even if you were in prison, because you didn't ask for that. That's something that
Yeah.
and I'd fight for people to get services.
Yeah.
But 2 years of that, and I was, it was time for me to go. I took a position teaching at the university over here, and maintained my practice throughout the entirety of that.
So Greenberg Associates is still, you're still running that.
Oh yeah, we've got six therapists in there, and we have clients as far east as we do work all the way down to Isle of Wight. We do work out west up to Albemarle County, as far north. Our friends up at George Mason University's police department, and city of Fairfax, and far south is the border of North Carolina.
Wow. So it's a big area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we appreciate you coming in. I know you're a busy person. So a couple last questions.
Sure.
So what year did you go? And I'm gonna name the academy. When you went to a regional academy around here,
I did.
What year was?
That would have been in 19. So I was 55 when I was in there, and now I'm 60. So it was 5 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. So is it true you were on double secret probation? I know we can't talk about that here.
Yeah. I was on triple secret probation. Yeah.
Triple secret probation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had lunch one time. We were just having fun. But yeah, I remember you said you were on double secret probation.
Yeah.
From Animal House.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I know that reference.
You were.
Yeah, well, I went in at 7 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. I left at 5, and then I would go back to my office, and I would work until 9 doing clients and seeing clients. And I did that for 6 months.
Yeah, so for 6 months, you basically laid aside your business, which is a full-time business, essentially. And, of course, you worked at night. But,
right.
But
I had other people working, and then I would work.
Yeah.
But 6 months, yeah.
Yeah. Because the academy's 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I was there, but I wasn't your coordinator. And you were obviously, it says a lot for somebody, and this is no slight to other people, is with all the education experience you have to be able to, this is what the whole key is to life. And I'm told my kids this forever. So you see me here as a totally different person you've probably ever seen me outside of my home, right?
I don't think, in my profession, I see people for who they are.
Right.
And so I don't see as much of a difference in you. I see, there's a formula. It's by Kurt Lewin. It's behavior is a function of the person and the environment. Mm-hmm. And so I try and look past the environment to see the person.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because I played a role at the academy.
You did, and you played that role, well. But I've never laughed as hard as when you were my driving instructor.
Bingo.
And
I think I was showing you the course, the urban tactical.
It was the urban tactical course, and I was scalding the tires off that thing. Yeah. And you were making, and I thought I would have you a little bit nervous, but you were over there making these little snide little comments as if nothing was happening, and it was making me laugh so hard.
Yeah, I'm like, get it, man, get it.
I know that's right. I know that's you. Yeah, you're like, I think I hit one of the pilings, and you were like, that citizen's dead.
We both were laughing the whole time.
I know.
Because it's supposed to be professional.
Yeah,
but we've known each other prior.
You guys already. Is this the first time y'all had really linked up since?
No, we've talked.
We've had lunch together a couple of, just for fun.
Yeah.
And we just, keep in touch side street. But I mean, I
find that you have a wealth of knowledge and a passion that I think is well placed, Eric.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that you have a passion for people, and you have a passion, a lot of people don't recognize their errors, and they can't. And when you don't recognize them, you can't come to grips with them, and you can't make amends, and you can't fix them. And the one thing that I've always been impressed with you is that you've been able to call yourself on stuff, and that to me is safe. That's a safe guy, because you can call yourself on your own BS, and that to me is it's a sign of character.
Yeah, it's not easy being Eric.
No,
not Junior, but
no.
Yeah, but I mean, when you came into,
either.
I appreciate it. When you came into the academy, what I was going to say was, I've always rated, and people will. And this is not about me, but in the academy, that role, or even as a cop, people may not always have a chance to see that humble part of you because the situation may not dictate or allow you to be that person.
Right.
But I appreciated you coming into the academy and I won't say humbling yourself because we're all the same.
Yeah.
We're all human, but I don't think you came in there thinking you were better than nobody. But the point I'm trying to make is you still had to put aside your personal business, all these other things you were doing to get the certification, and then go through field training and get out there and not only that, but put your life on the line. So I appreciate that. So real quick, last thing, if an officer's out there, and they think they're about. Here's the biggest problem because I've been there. I don't know if you ever. We talked about the last podcast. I had anxiety so bad out of high school. Almost like an agoraphobic.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to, cognitive behavioral therapy and all this stuff. But anyway, for me, the isolation, even as a cop, when I sued the city, that's what took me down. Mm-hmm. Made me more depressed. Or made me depressed. So you got these guys out there. What would you recommend they do? Obviously reach out for help, through peer support. But what is it that at the very end that you think takes these guys and I don't know. This may not be a question you can answer because it might take forever. But what is it you would say to an officer who's struggling?
Right. So I'd say first of all, admit you're struggling a little bit. Don't just rub dirt on it and move on. Talk with somebody about it and find somebody who you trust. And I know that's tough. That's tough these days. People are full of their own self-interest, and but find somebody who you can trust. And if you, I find that the 30-30-30 rule is pretty much it's pretty consistent. 30% of officers who have a rough time want to talk with someone like me, and I'm available. 30% want to talk with the chaplain, their priest, their rabbi, pastor, and they're available. And 30% want to talk with a peer. But that's 90.
Yeah, what about the other 10%?
Yeah, well, that's the deal. And when my wife, who was not happy with me, setting aside everything and going through the academy, she asked me, She was.
I can only imagine.
She was pretty upset with me about that, and still is. But she understands it now. She understands it.
I ain't gonna get you started. Bro.
Don't even, man. Don't even. But the truth of the matter is the 10%.
Yeah.
The 10% was the reason why I went through the academy, because they would talk with the peer if they thought the peer knew any more about it than they did.
Yeah. That's big. Yeah, that's big.
So now what happens is I can become a peer that does.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was also my commitment to peer support. I'm the president of the Virginia Peer Support Association, and I believe that that good peer support programs, which I myself or VAPS of the Virginia Peer Support Association would be excited to help any officer develop one in their department, and we've got a particular method for doing it. I sat on IACP's council to review the policies for peer support. I think it was in 2009 and then 2013 and then 2013. So I've sat on those. I've seen those policies. I've massaged them myself. I understand them. We developed training based on all that. We'd be happy to help departments develop those peer support programs, healthy peer support programs. Those are extremely critical for officer wellness in departments. And so I believe that, look, I was asked a few years back by the president of the FOP for Virginia to come and talk at their annual dinner up in Northern Virginia. And one of the things I said that, we needed to rebuild the thin blue line. The thin blue line has been really tattered, and people believe that the thin blue line is something that officers hide, mischievous behavior behind, when the truth of the matter is all it does is it protects the public from that stuff that they don't want to see. Yeah. And I think that, if we're going to be back here together, we can support each other. But if you don't have that, we're not going to be in a position to really support each other the way that we need to.
Right.
And quite honestly, I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said it. He said everything else.
Yeah.
And that is, we're going to either hang together or we're going to hang separately.
Let's hang together.
Yeah, let's hang together.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's go down
100%.
together.
Yeah.
I think that's a good ending point.
Yep.
So, man, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
brother.
no, my great pleasure.
Yeah, and I guess that wraps up episode 5.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I've never met you before, but I feel humble sitting here and man of many words.
Humbled to be here with you guys, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we hope the message gets out. And just so you'll know, I mean, we're following up. We've got people coming on that a guy who started a nonprofit here in Virginia. He's a Thomasdale graduate, VMI graduate. But anyhow, several people coming by who suffer from PTSD, military and police officers, are going to share their story. And then we're just kind of building this thing where we want this information to be out there. So if before we leave, though, or before we wrap this up, not on the air, is make sure you give Eric all your stuff.
Sure.
And he'll tell you, you do your bit right now.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to say follow us on the Hill, on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you listen to podcasts, on Spotify or Apple Music. And this will be live on YouTube. And
nice.
It's every other
Monday, but...
So on there, we'll have your information if you want to put it out there.
Sure. Yeah.
People can
find me at www.copdr.com, copdoctor.com.
That's
perfect.
Right.
And we'll link all that below. So
sure. Absolutely.
People can access you.
Yeah. All right, man. We appreciate it, brother.
Thanks, man.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks. Smells like your wife's cooking something. What are we having for dinner?
Grilled and chill.
He doesn't even know.
Yeah, grilled and chill, bro.
All right.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir.
Next time.
All right. Peace.
High atop the hill.
Thank you for listening to On the Hill. Like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. See ya.